Hey everyone, I am still Kenneth Ship, Executive Director for Ujima Blues Foundation. Joined here with one of my good friends, Adam Wilkerson. He's been serving as our chair of the board or chair of our advisory board. Definitely been working with us on Mo Better Blues when it was in Nashville for a long time, and especially the first iteration of Geek and just the overall jack of all trades when it comes to the foundation and like a lot of different blues facets. So welcome, Adam.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. Cool.
Like Kenneth said, my name's Adam Wilkerson. I use he/him pronouns. I'm an instructor at BluesGeek and have been involved with Geek since the second iteration of Mo Better Blues, teaching with Crystal there ever since then. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. Very proud to call that home, and this year's theme is especially exciting to me. We'll touch on that more later, but I'm going to be talking a lot about practice in this video. I'm sure really excited about that.
Practice? You're talking about practice.
Practice.
Talking about practice. Okay. All right. Let's see. So I'm gonna mix these up a bit, so because everyone's been trying to do the same couple questions, so I'm gonna at least mix it up. We haven't done a superpower in a bit, so what would be your your ideal superpower, and why?
That's a great one. That's the one I don't have an immediate answer to. I think my ideal superpower would be being able to survive with no sleep.
Ah.
I feel like that's a superpower. I really do. Now, if you mean a traditional superpower, the answer is teleportation.
So we're gonna strike that one because everyone's picking teleportation.
Fine.
But yeah.
How about running really fast like the Flash? Does that count as teleportation?
Almost. No. But I like it'd be like in that kind of like mystery man / unbreakable category, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely useful. May not always be like I had a joke in college about like a person that was like super strong, but they could only lift a specific weight range. So like, they could lift a ton, but like a couple pounds like too heavy or too light, and they were just useless. So we just like did this whole list of like the most useless superpowers. But no, that'd be good. Can you get more done? You know.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is that I'd have more hours in the day, I'd get more done. I could procrastinate more on video games. Yeah. It would make travel a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Jet lag. It's not a.
Jet lag's not a thing.
Yeah. Assuming it doesn't have to affect your. Yeah. Assuming it's not sleep affected. Yeah.
What I haven't worked out yet is, does this mean I don't get tired? Because that seems like I would die pretty quickly. Because tired's your body's way of being like, hey, you've had enough physical stress, and if I never got tired, that would be a problem. So then, how do I get rid of the tired? Do I just like do that using just like sitting down or playing video games, or do I have to like drink a lot? I don't
know. The drinking a lot. Okay, so if it could be like, if it could be like Cap, because whenever he drinks, he can drink, but he doesn't really get affected. His metabolism's too fast, so it works out of his blood. So that'd be a nice combo.
Right.
It's like no sleep, fast metabolism. Of course, I don't think he gets a buzz, if I remember right. So
it's a trade-off. But then I get to drink beer with no buzz and still look like Chris Evans. I take this trade-off.
Yeah. All right. Next one. What have you read, watched, or listened to recently that you really loved, enjoyed, or were affected by?
Yeah. So recently, during sort of the off season, Crystal and I got a chance to watch a little bit of TV together, which is not something we ever get to do. Like, there's a couple months out of the year where we have enough free time to sit down and do that, and we usually don't really like sitting down and just watching stuff together. And it was a rare thing Crystal and I have very different taste in television shows. And so it was a rare thing that we discovered that we both really liked The Witcher, and for similar reasons. So that was great, The Witcher Netflix show. And so I started picking up listening to the audiobooks, and I've never actually played the Witcher series, so I started playing The Witcher 3 on my PS4, and it was cool. It was fun to get to dive into that lore of like the Norse mythology that they touch on so much in that with the Polish background. It's really, really cool. I say Norse, I mean Northern European mythology, and it's just so cool. Plus, Crystal was like Henry Cavill, so.
It's like, I just had I wouldn't have picked that one, but that's nice. Nice.
Yeah. Oh wait, were you not a fan of The Witcher?
No, I didn't say I was. No, I wasn't saying I wasn't a fan of Witcher. I didn't know that you two would sync up on that one.
I know it was kind of unexpected for us too. We were happy about that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And then we're gonna ask the question of all questions. How did you get into dancing?
Yeah, my freshman girlfriend's best friend in college asked us to come to ballroom dance. Right? Yeah. Asked to come to ballroom dance. This gets even more confusing when later me and freshman girlfriend broke up, and then we started dating each other's like very close friends, and that was that same woman that had gotten me into dance became a person that I dated for like 2 years in college. It was fine though, because we started dating each other's like best friends like at the same time, so it was all okay. All
right.
But anyway, but that was ballroom dance, and I started off there, and then that's where I met Crystal. She started ballroom dancing in 2008, so I'd started in 2004, and then she got into swing dancing, and I got into swing dancing at the same time in Lindy Hop in like 2008, and then in 2010. She went to a blues dance workshop, and then she was like, "You have to come with me to the next one. This is fantastic." And I fell in love with it pretty much immediately. That was a class with Tim and Witten. And if I remember correctly, Damon and Heidi might have been teaching at that same workshop. I may have taken one class from them, but the very first class was Tim and Witten, and I'll just never forget that, obviously.
Gotcha.
And so, and then I kind of never looked back. I took a brief hiatus during second stint of grad school when I was at NC State for depression reasons, like frankly. But once I got out of that in 2014, I dove right back in, and it's been so it feels pretty good that was only a 3-year period of the last 10 years, and the farther away I get from it, like the smaller of a break that seems.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my story of how I got into blues dancing.
Common threads I'm seeing. Of course, you had more exception levels to 2 years.
That's a pretty fun thing that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, and I started off as a ballroom dancer, which explains my frame and stuff.
No, what?
The things.
Not at all. Okay. So when you're not dancing, do you have a day job?
I do. Yeah, I work 40 hours a week for a contractor here in Huntsville. I do cybersecurity research and operations stuff, which means that I do. We call it red teaming and blue teaming, which means that people go, we have a computer system. We want to know if it is breakable. Come break it for us and tell us how you did it so we can mitigate that. So I'm an ethical hacker.
Mm-hmm. So would you recommend anyone buying the Ring door security devices?
No, frankly, I would not. Anything that uses wireless communications or a computer for a lock is definitely a little bit suspect. However, it's not any really less secure than standard door locks, because if you didn't know this, standard door locks are imminently pickable. So like if you know how to pick locks, I know how to pick locks. If you know how to pick locks, like there are mitigations that people have come up with for tumblers for in the past 100 years, and none of those are implemented in the standard locks that people have on their houses. So while rings do get a bad rap, it's like, yeah, but it's mostly there to deter people who are just not that driven to break into your house anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I just every IT Reddit or like security Reddit, It's like everyone's raving about this. This is awful. It's a terrible idea. Stop it.
Not great. Yeah.
So for those who are not aware, me and Adam are both avid beer drinkers. Adam is definitely more of the connoisseur of a wide variety of beers, and you can see his hop structure tattoo.
Yeah, this is a chemical that exists in hops oil turned into a hop spine. I really like beer and beer chemistry.
Do you have a good story from your beer making experiences?
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. I've got a few. I'll say how I started developing my own recipes, though. I think that's the best part.
Cool.
So I make my own recipes, and the very first. So I'm really into big flavors. So beers that are super hoppy or super black, so the beer that most people in the scene who have had my beer have had this one called Wild Ponies, which is a oatmeal milk stout that I brewed. That's made with. That I then rack onto, that means age, on vanilla and bourbon barrel components, because I don't have enough to put into a whole barrel. So I have to take basically chunks of wood from bourbon barrels to get that flavor. But my very first recipe I made was a black IPA. And what happened was when Crystal and I first moved to Alabama, we lived in Coleman, Alabama, which to do in Coleman is there's a park that's nice to walk in. And so what we did. So
keep going. That's fantastic.
And so we were able to. Crystal worked in Birmingham. I worked in Huntsville, so we lived halfway in between in this little town. And so I had a lot of free time in the evenings, and so I started doing 1 gallon batches, a couple per week. And so I went through 14 batches of 1 gallon batches to try to dial in flavors. In the span of 3 months, I went through 14 of these batches. And it was, and the beer, the very first one I made came out at 0.5% ABV because I so completely screwed up the all grain extraction process where you actually get the sugars and the right chemicals to come out of the grain. That's called mashing, is that process. So that beer was bad, and then as we went on. It got better and better. And finally, on the very last iteration, I doubled my grain bill, which means I can extract more sugars. And I was like, there's something missing. So black IPA is very dark like a stout, has really roasty flavors like chocolate and coffee. And then it also has strong hop characteristics. And so it's just a flavor bomb, right? But even at 5%, it was missing something. So I doubled my grain bill. The last iteration came out 12.5% ABV. Oof. And it was correct then. I was like, oh, this needed booze. That's the flavor. Alcohol changed up to the rest of the stuff. So that was, crafting my first recipe over 3 months is one of my favorite sort of artistic endeavors I've undertaken. Probably not just in beer, but in general. That was something I was very proud of.
I feel like we talked about this. Have you had any disasters?
Any brewing disasters? Yeah. So I'm very lucky in that all of my I've never had a bottle shatter on me, which is a thing that does happen to people. So that's pretty terrible. Full-on disasters, I would say some of those early brews were kind of disastrous. Outside of that, most of my disaster territory has just been unholy messes. So when you first start brewing, for anybody who's looking to get out there and brew, your first few times, you're going to boil over your boil. And what that means is that you have liquid that is on the stove that forms a head as it boils, and then the head just comes off. And by head, I mean a foam. And that foam exists because it's made of sugar. It's made of maltose. So it makes an unholy mess in your kitchen because it's just imagine you took maple syrup, right? And then you poured it into some water, half water, half maple syrup for sugar content. And then you boiled it until it went all over your kitchen. That's it. That's what it's like. It was awful to clean up. I had a few things like that. Oh, I also the first time I decided to taste test things, I taste tested malts, which you can do. They taste like horse feed. They're just like a cereal. But then I taste tested a hop pellet. Hop pellets are pure plant material and oils just compressed. And so if you put that on your tongue, it completely blows your palate for a day. Your palate is full of nothing but green.
I didn't know that.
So that's also unadvisable.
All right. So no major disasters. Learned enough from like some close misses and just general messiness. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. And we've been enjoying the benefits ever since.
I'll save you a bottle this year.
Oh.
I currently have it on secondary fermentation in the back room.
Woo! Cool. So we talked about many of your blues endeavors, and I think a lot of people would know that you're a pretty big dance comp nerd. But let's talk about that a little bit. Why do you care about competition so much?
So comps are a really good way to show people how the direction that the scene is going, and to show the progress of people at various levels in the scene. Talking about different leveled comps, if you think about like true open level comps, that means like anybody who's not judging can compete. That those comps kind of show the state of the art of the dance as we're doing it right now. Comps at sort of the intermediate level can really give people a thing to work towards. It can help with goal setting, which I think is really important. That's also true at the highest level of competition as well. And then it can also really get people a warm fuzzy feeling about their dancing in particular. Even at sort of the amateur level. And so the amateur level, AdNov finals, advanced novice finals or pro-am finals. Those are sort of the same thing, just it's a slightly semantic difference. Yeah. That format I think is really nice because it helps to showcase that people who have only recently started dancing still have a lot to give to the community, and so that's an important value to me as well. So like that's kind of a multi-tiered answer, but what the whole like displays where we are as a scene right now is also achieved by things like Geek's showcases. We're calling them showcases, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, right. Yeah, so
Heather be mad at me. So it's the student idiom exhibitions.
Right, the exhibition, not showcase. Yeah. So I think the exhibitions also demonstrate that sort of thing. But what comps have is it can help to generate friendly rivalries among people, where it can help people get a sort of friendly version of one-upsmanship going, where it's like, oh, you did that, I want to be able to do that, or something different but better, et cetera. And so like it can create a healthy, I don't want to use the word competition to describe it, but it can create a healthy sense of competition. So for instance, you and I have, I think, a very healthy like one-upsmanship thing between the two of us. And I really always like that about our dancing, that, there's always like, oh, Kenneth did that thing, I want to be able to do that like he does it or better, and vice versa. And you and I have talked about for years that this has been an ongoing thing with you and me. So I think that's super healthy as well.
Cool. What recommendation would you give? What recommendation would you give to someone that's maybe in an unhealthy space with competitions right now?
I spoke with somebody recently about this, and they had chosen to just take a break and take a step back from competing themselves. And so if there's sort of two ways that I think that question can be intended. One is you get into an unhealthy space yourself, and that could be anything from self-doubt to not feeling like you're getting feedback, or that the goal setting is really helping you advance your dance, or just to, I don't really feel the competitive spirit and I want to social dance more. Mm-hmm. There's also this thing where it can get more abrasive than friendly. And if any of those things are, my biggest thing is to take a second to self-evaluate and either possibly take a break or redefine your goals for competition. Think about, instead of, like sort of reset a goal, maybe like on the same scale as your current goal, but bring it down, or maybe just totally shifting it entirely. It's just like, and if you get into a space where you're like, I'm competing at everything and I'm not making finals and all this, a really tangible thing you can do is target a couple of comps that you really care about, that are really, really important to you, and really shoot for those and practice towards those if you wanted to do a goal shift. Yeah. As a potential solution.
So similar question, but I'll direct it more towards the comp creators or organizers, or like, I guess for the scene leaders. Like, what can we do if we feel like the competition space is getting toxic might be a little bit strong, but I think that's kind of the direction I'm going with it. Like if it's not keeping that spirit of like a friendly rivalry.
Yeah. So there's a few different options that I've thought about here. I know that some events are taking away comps entirely or reducing their number of competitions. I don't necessarily think that's the right thing for every event to do. We run one very specific competition at Backwater, my event Backwater Blues. We run one very specific competition, but that's all we've ever run. And so like so it's not that we've reduced that number. We just focus very hard on that one. But I think that's something I wanna say as well, is that organizers focusing on having just the same way that they focus on having a distinct purpose for their event, having a distinct purpose for your competition. Like, what are your goals? What are your criteria? Who have you hired to judge? These are all really important questions to help improve mindsets about that, because overall, I think that brings more purpose to any given comp, which I think helps the participants, can help the participants' attitude towards it, because it can help them to it can help bring real tangible value to that competition, which I think is important. The other things would be celebrating, really taking time to celebrate competitions and not just like ever use them as a tack on, because like I think that like making it be like, all right, let's get through this as quickly as possible, and that's really my only goal in finals, is to make sure that we get this done so people can get back dancing. That is a goal, but if that's your main goal, really think about why that final exists at your event. Because I think that rushing that really makes the spirit of that competition feel less complete, and I think that can contribute to this.
I mean, because if we're rushing it, why would anyone else care to see that or have their dance interrupted with that comp? It's like
Exactly.
Like that's like a top down kind of. Yeah, if we're not prioritizing or making it a key feature, like people aren't
exactly.
People aren't stupid. They're gonna pick up on that.
Exactly.
Cool. Glad we got some comp questions in there. Let's talk about Clarksdale. It's one of our close loves. I know we could spend a lot of time talking about Clarksdale, but. So I'll make it real succinct. Why is that town special to you?
So I'm from Tupelo, Mississippi, originally, which is not near the Delta, but it is it's near the Delta relative to other places in the world, right? But like I'm from about an hour and a half east of the Delta. And the Delta is this region in Mississippi where the blues was born. There are a lot of legends about that, and I say that glibly because I am from Mississippi, and so I have some pride there. There are a lot of arguments to be made that blues was born all over the Southeast, anywhere that you actually had large sharecropper populations, and large black populations post Civil War. I would say large sharecropper or large free black population, but like that's all the black population in the South during the time. So like, but any place there arguably has some claim to some aspect of blues, right? But a lot of stories about W.C. Handy involve the Delta, and so like it holds this thing as being the birthplace of the blues. And being from Mississippi, there's a lot of things in the history of Mississippi that that are unfortunate, and it took me a long time to find something to be proud of being from Mississippi. And the fact that it's our state motto is the birthplace of America's music. And I am proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm from the place that so is this music that I absolutely love, that spun off rock and roll and soul and funk and hip hop and grunge and metal, everything that had American roots or even non-American roots, but then had American roots, like because like you think about British metal and you think about even that you think about the fact that British metal came from British rock musicians, which came from the British blues culture, which developed in the 1950s. Like it all kind of comes back. Like, and I just I find a lot of pride there. And it's always fun to like drive over on Highway 6 and Highway 72 and then Highway 6 to actually see all of these all of these like cities that we used to go to. Like we drive through South Panola, which is this really excellent football town that we always played. We were in the same division and we played them every year. The only concussion I ever suffered as a football player was some really small dude running really fast to me, hit me in the head at South Panola. It's a thing. I played football when I was in high school because of course I did. But anyway, seeing all that like feels like home. And anytime I go back there, like the food is similar to home. Like, it just greens and pork just similar to what I grew up with. And it's just, it feels like home. And getting to know some of the musicians there has made it feel even more so. So like, there's a few of them that I'm not sure if they remember me, but I remember all. And there's a few who do, and like who I've come to be on a first name basis with, and I really value those people's art, and I think it's really great.
Yeah. And I would say like also for like the national blues scene, not just dancing, but the scene as a whole, like it's definitely a town that needs our like doesn't need to be forgotten, needs our attention. It's like spend money down there, go visit, go learn and talk from the folks that are down there. It's like being an active participant down there. I don't want to say like a rite of passage, but like I think people owe it to Clarksdale to spend some time down there.
I agree. I agree that the I said it this way before, that there are several people there who are more on like Maslow's like first level of the hierarchy, that like, if you have the time and you have the energy and you have the money, go to Clarksdale, buy music from musicians, and really help support that community. Because even there aren't a lot of juke joints still open because a lot of people have passed away in the last 10 years. And the ones who haven't passed away are not all in the best health. And it's, we want to keep this culture. They are working so hard to keep this culture alive. And anything we can do to help that is something that I stand very strongly for. So yes, I'm glad you're right. It's a thing I like to say as well. Make sure, go to Clarksdale. If you're like, yeah, I'm going to go somewhere in the South. Do I want to go to New Orleans? That's too much party atmosphere for me this weekend. Go to Clarksdale. You'll have a great time. You hear just as good music.
And Memphis is like an hour and a half from there. So like easy airport for folks to fly into and drop down. We do it all the time.
Yep. And if you want to see some more historical like black art out of Mississippi and some more like historical like blues music out of Mississippi, you can also fly into Jackson, Mississippi, which is only about 2 hours south east of Clarksdale, and it's the capital. But there's a lot of places there as well to really look into.
Yeah. So let's talk about you as an instructor and a dancer, and to the weekend theme. What does personal authenticity mean for you?
I'll answer this as an instructor first, because I that's more natural for me. I feel like that's an easier question for me to answer. So as an instructor, it means a few things. Transparency in our classes. So Crystal and I teach classes ranging from what you would think of as traditional class structures that are almost ballroom-esque, like where we do like move, breakdown, and like incrementally build up, to just sort of show and try, to like small group learning with feedback mechanisms built in. But that's what I want to key on, is the fact that when we start a class, we really do like to talk about either at the start or at the end of most of our classes, we'll talk about why we did the structure we did, and we try to like span different structures over the course of any weekend so that people can get different. We can cater to different learning styles and help people find personal authenticity through that. So we really do focus on the aspect of our classes, and we really do think, it might sound cliche, but we do think about people become better at learning. And a huge part of that is like is understanding what you value and and ways in which you are already good at learning, and ways in which you can grow to become better at learning in those ways. And that's something that we really target really hard. That's something we've learned about. From our practice group that we run. I mentioned I was going to talk about practice. We've been running a practice group for 4.5 years out of our house, ever since August of 2015. Every other week. And we've got a lot of lessons learned, but we've gotten to the point now that we have a whole setup where people come up with their own ideas, and then we have a voting structure, and people are able to, and we work on the things that people in our community want to work on. And so we've worked really hard on trying to help people in the Huntsville community also develop a sense of ownership of their own dance and a sense of ownership of the topics that they want to actually study in dance. And I got to give a lot of credit to the people who participate in that, right? Because they bring that energy and they bring those ideas. Yeah. But I think like being very transparent and straightforward with students in class is a big part of my personal authenticity as a teacher. As a dancer, there's been a lot here in the last few years that I've really had to think about with that. I think always being true to myself and dancing the musical things that I hear in the music is part of it, but that's kind of a non-answer. I feel like it's more about the fact.
There you go.
Yeah, here in the past couple of years, worked a lot through events like BluesGeek, training with the other instructors at BluesGeek, some other personal practice training stuff. Every time that Kenneth's close, you come down and we anytime we're within 2 hours, we try to get an hour of practice in. Yeah. And those moments, and then also things like the blues experiment and other things that I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people and worked on applying that to my dance. And I have to take that. And personal authenticity to me means taking all that feedback and figuring out what parts of it I really need to sort of immediately apply that I think are things that I really want to be part of my dance. And then what parts of it I'm going to back pocket. And that doesn't mean ignore. It means either my brain's too full, not right now, or in some cases it's like, I don't think that quite lines up with my values right this moment, but I'm going to make a note of it and we'll see what happens in the coming months. No, I mean, that's it. And I think that learning how to break those things down, really personally, I think that I have a reputation of being a sort of flashy lead. And in our scene, we've had a decline in flash, which is not decline's a negative sounding word, and I don't mean it negatively, because I'm absolutely great with the trend of people wanting to dance sound mechanics and simply and being relaxed, because that's so true to the blues as a music genre. And when we talk to people in clubs who dance, they talk about it being at the end of a long day, and they're like, no, this is what I did for fun. So I mean, why would you work too hard? Why would you work too hard at developing your dance? That's not what I mean. But why during a dance, when I'm relaxing, would I want to work very hard? I want to chill. But that being said, when I've talked to other people at a venue, I've had to square that with talking with certain dancers at Reds in Clarksdale and the Juke Joint in Clarksdale. And stuff where they're kind of flashy too, and I've had to sort of come up with this idea of how can I maintain the way that my body likes to move, which is this sort of big way, while still respecting the chill nature of this dance. And that's something I've really been working on a lot here recently. And I've decided, this is the really personal part, I've decided that while I'm able, that by the time I'm in my 50s, probably before that, I won't be able to do some of the stuff that I do now. And while I'm able, I want to be able to still throw down like that. That's how I like dancing, and I want to do that. And some of that maturity, I want to develop that maturity, and I want my dance to look more calm and more mature as I go on. And I can accelerate that a little bit, but some of that's just gonna have to come with age too, and I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Dang it! I don't want to start thinking about what I won't be able to do. Yeah.
Don't do that. I every time I get a foot, this past weekend, I was teaching in Denver, and my right foot started really hurting, and I'm like, oh no, is this gonna be that injury that? And then come Tuesday, it was fine. So I'm like, no. Yeah. But every time I'm I'm in my mid-30s, am I falling apart? And then the answer is no. You're only in your mid-30s. You're not falling apart yet.
Yeah. Yet. The existential dread is it's creeping around the corner.
My sister's pushing 40 and she's not that much older than me. That's a thing. So, Aaron, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
So The only thing I wanted to like follow up on that, and you touched on like different ways that you work with that as far as like in practices that we've done together, like practices in your own time. Um, does that change how you think about it when you're like setting out, like because you're talking about some things you'll set aside for later, or even in like competitions, like does that change how you work on your personal authenticity or like how you approach it? Or when
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I hear what you're saying. The answer is yes. Specifically working with other people externally, like working with you, there are certain I don't think you and I have very different values, but we have very different ways that we move. And sometimes those manifest when we talk as different values. Like they sound like different values on the face, if that makes sense. Like I can't come up with an exact example, but there are times that you and I will think of something very differently. Just and then but then when you have an external person giving you feedback, trying on their skin for a minute, trying on that sort of philosophy can help open up new doors and expand your and expand your authenticity. There's definitely aspects of like the independence and partnership in Jukin, for instance, is something that I didn't fully understand until some practice sessions with certain people, yourself included, yourself like very chiefly included actually. That helped me to develop some different ideas about lead follow philosophy. That if you would ask me my lead follow philosophy 3 years ago, it would have been dramatically different than it is now for that reason, for the reason of external work. As far as competitions go, yes and no. The thing that I immediately think about is that you have two ways to think about this. You can either always dance yourself, no matter what, judges' values versus my values be damned. Or you can sort of like mold to the judges' values who are judging that particular competition, and that will help you to succeed in that particular comp. I actually don't have a tactical problem with that. I think that's a good tactic, and if your primary value is to win competitions, like, and you're like, this is what I am. I'm a competitive dancer, and I really care about this. Then doing that is something that I think is justifiable. But if you're like, but if above all else, you're like, I'm this kind of social dancer and I'm this, then you're probably going to tend towards the other direction. And I know for a fact that I tend towards that direction. And so finaling in comps it always comes down to a matter of opinion and people looking at you at certain times and da 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 da. But the point is that you have to decide for yourself how much you're going to let that external set of values affect your dance.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you like dropped it in that bow toward the end, because like it makes me think about like who's on the score sheet and like do our values align. So sometimes if I was at a placement, like I want to see like I know we're in similar boats, so where did you place me? Because and then if someone does have I would say complementary values, like they're different but they still can complement things that I like to do, then I don't necessarily feel icky is not the right way. That's because I don't really want to prescribe value to it. But I don't have any hesitation necessarily in adjusting, or like I'll focus on this aspect a little bit more than probably I would do. But this is, again, it's a complementary change, not a contradictory change for me, where it's like rubbing against me.
Yeah. And that also though can provide an opportunity for those of you who have started looking at score sheets and really nerding out on that. That can provide an opportunity for you as well to figure out those new avenues that maybe you haven't thought of. So Judge X consistently over the course of a year scores you, like you make finals, or even you either like don't make finals and you consistently don't get a nod from a particular judge, or you make finals and you consistently get 4th, 5th, 6th place from a particular judge. Maybe go to that judge and say, hey, I want to chat, like in whatever format they're willing to give feedback, whether that be, buy them a big drink at a bar, to a private lesson, whatever, but ask them like, hey, like, so consistently I've seen this happening. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And instead of just dismissing that as completely different values, which by the way, I'm not saying that Kenneth was doing this at all. I'm saying that, like, instead of the mindset of that's a different thing than the way I want to dance, maybe ask them and just say, well, so what was it about my dancing in these particular competitions that made you that had you dropping me. And you may learn something about your own values, or you may learn that you're not executing your values exactly the way you think. There's a lot to be learned from those seemingly opposing positions as well.
Yeah, I like that last part. May not be may not be executing, displaying. Yeah. Okay. We're just gonna start wrapping up, and I'm gonna share. Real quick. Let me. So you can see it. Cool. So I'll make sure that so everyone can see this photo. So talk us through like what's going on here.
What's going? So this is from Halloween 2013, and we that week we went climbing, and everybody at the gym wore their costumes that they wanted to wear for Halloween, and I went that year as Walter White from Breaking Bad. And what I had done is I grew out my goatee for a solid month ahead of that. I usually cut this on a 4 now, so you're used to seeing me with like this very trim beard. So I grew this out to the point that's like 4 millimeters. It was actually like 13 millimeters in this. That is the actual shape of my beard, by the way. This you can't really see very well because it's like because I am platinum blonde except for this part of my beard, which is red. Yeah. And so this is platinum blonde, so you can't really see it, but there's just as much hair here as there is here, and it's a little point. Anyway, but you can see it here because then I colored it using like spray and a costume dye, spray and costume dye. And then I, bought the glasses, and then other than that, I just sort of dressed this way, and I just happened to look enough like a young Bryan Cranston in this picture that it works out. So we went climbing at our local climbing gym because we're really avid climbers, wearing that. So that was cool. And then it was either that night or it was later that week. I wore the same costume. It was later that week. I remember because I wasn't wearing those shorts. I wore like full on khakis and tucked the shirt in.
There you go.
Because I was being very Walter White later in the week. And we went to this bar called Mac's Speed Shop in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We loved Mac's. It had 50 beers on tap, most of them local. The best smoked chicken nachos I've ever had in my life. And they gave Crystal a salad that was big enough to feed her for a meal for $5. This was our favorite bar by a lot, right? And so we go there. We go there that night, and they're like, "Oh, we're having a costume contest." And I went, "Well, okay, I'll enter the costume contest. This is fine." So I went and I said the lines, and I was like, "I'm the one who knocks," and all the things. And there were a few other people, and later on, the guy who owns Mac's came by our table and was like, "Hey, you got the second most votes. You got second place in the competition." I was like, "Oh, well, I didn't hear them announce." They said, "Oh, we only announced first because only first got a prize." I was like, "Oh, cool." So second place got nothing. And I was like, "What did first place win?" He was like, "Oh, $500 cash."
Oh.
And I was like, "Why did you tell me that? Like, that's not. I don't understand. Like, why would you tell me that's like, oh, close, but no $500 when you were graduating?" I was like, "Come on." That was a pretty funny moment, but
rough, son.
But,
all right. So two more thoughts. What's one walk away you would want people to get out of the weekend?
The main one is the realization that the meta learning aspect of dance weekends, of understanding how to better your dancing and what things you took away and can keep practicing on, is more important long-term to your dancing than the immediate changes that are made during the weekend. That's going to be a major theme for finding personal authenticity and really developing good, not good as too qualitative, sound and repeatable positive results in your dance.
Excellent. And last but not least, we've been asking people to some of their, so it could be your favorite blues song, or it could just be one you're jamming on right now. So it doesn't have to be like favorite all time. Just be like, this is one I like right now. And we're putting that together in a playlist for people to listen to before the event happens. So do you have a song we can throw into that list?
I've got four.
Of course.
And so I'm going to give you all of them, and that's just how that is.
No, that's cool.
The 56 BPM, super slow, drawn out, sad version of St. James Infirmary from Louis Armstrong and his band. You know what I'm talking about? Wah, wah, and it ends on the funeral dirge. Possibly surprisingly for some people, that's the only ballroom of the four. Mojo Hand by Lightning Hopkins. That's the best strutting song in the world. Fight me. It's pretty good.
We might. We'll talk.
Yeah. And then Lucius Spiller, a musician out of Clarksdale, his version of Sweet Home Chicago is my favorite version of Sweet Home Chicago. And it's magical. Bonus track that's not actually blues though is Lucius's version of Purple Rain is also my favorite cut of Purple Rain. It's pretty great.
I was gonna say I would, if you're gonna go not Prince, I would go Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles. He's got like a full orchestra behind him, like doing it. It's like, what?
That's pretty great. That's pretty great. You're right. You're right. But if you're gonna cover Prince and you're only one person doing it, Lucius does a pretty good job.
Lucius does a pretty good,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so those are a few. But yeah, if you're only gonna add one of them to the list, add Lucius. He's still around making music.
Yeah. Cool. And might be a geek. I don't know. You'll have to follow the page and stuff to find out. Yeah.
I certainly will. I definitely don't have inside track information and share the advice you were talking to the people in the video.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Cool. Adam, brother, thank you for your time. Definitely really appreciate being able to talk to you.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. And thank you very much for having me on this. I'm really excited, as I am every year. BluesGeek is one of my absolute favorite events every year, so thanks.
Quick kissing up. That's good. All right. Talk to you later.
All right, man. Bye.
So.